Hi everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Moons and Mythos. This is episode number 17. I'm your co-host, Davyd Farrell, and as always, I'm joined by mythologist, astrologer Kelley Hunter. Hi, Kelley, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. It's my birthday week, so
Yes,
you
your
know.
birthday is, well, we're recording this on the 6th of December, and hopefully it's going to go out today. But without giving too much away, it is Kelley's birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday in advance, Kelley Hunter. How are you feeling about this moment? How are you feeling about your solar return?
Um,
Your face looks about the same as mine does when I think about my birthdays.
it's a marker. It's a new, yeah, you look at your solar return and I don't give it a lot of attention. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm interested to, see what houses are activated and where the moon sign is and that sort of thing, just to get a start on it. So that's, part of how I work with that.
They're kind of weird, aren't they? Birthdays as you get older. I mean, when you're a kid, they're a big deal. You get lots of presents and you have a party. And as you get older, you get less presents and you don't feel so inclined to have a party. And then you sort of get to the place where you don't do an awful lot. If you're lucky, you go out and see something nice and have a meal. And yet it's like, it's an important day in our calendar. It's the day that gives us the
Yeah.
blueprint for the rest of our life. So
Yeah.
but they are strange days. I've certainly found as I've got older that they sort of have a weird ambience to them sometimes, and particularly during the last 3 years, it's just been a generally weird ambience. Generally, we can say.
Yeah,
So
but I like solar returns. I really like having a new setup to
right,
work with for the year. Yeah.
yeah, it's like receiving a new solar code, isn't it, for the next 12 months? I
Yes,
guess.
that's a good way to put it. And it's based on your, birth
Mhm.
sun. So anyway.
So so this show is about the new moon that's coming up on the 12th of December, which is in Sagittarius. So in some ways, I guess that this show is a little bit like having a reading for your own birthday. It's going to be a few days after, but it's somewhat the same. And then we're going to be looking at the full moon in Cancer, which is on the 26th of December. Now, as many of our audience will probably be aware, we're also running the Return of the Light immersion that starts on the 12th of December with a new Mayan wave spell, which is out of the Red Skywalker, which carries the energy of the glyph of number 13. So this is a period all about the energy of the goddess, which I know is something that Kelley's very into and that we've already been working with this year. So this is a very, very potent time. And I find it interesting that often the astrology and the Mayan time often have
Yeah.
these very, very powerful pinch points. And this is another one, right, Kelley? So we're going to be looking at the chart for the next lunar cycle over the next month. But just wanted to preface that to everybody that this is a very powerful moment when we're going to be going into the depths of the darkness, into the space of the womb, really, which is what solstice or Yule is all about. And then we're going to be receiving that spark of fire from the sun, the return of the light, the return of the solar energy. So very, very potent time. And I'm curious, Kelley, to see how this new moon is going to set us up for the Christmas period, for solstice, but also for our container, which of course you're going to be a part of as always as well. So where are we going to start today on the new moon, Kelley? What's been catching your eye?
Well, a lot of things. So
I'm sure,
here's
as always.
okay, so is the chart showing?
It is. We've got you on camera, on radar.
Okay. So there's the chart of the new moon, December 12th. And it's the new moon is, at 20 degrees, 40 minutes of Sagittarius. And I thought I might as well look up the Sabian symbol because I know people like those. And so here it is, a child and a dog wearing borrowed eyeglasses. That is so, that to me, that echoes the fact that this new moon is squaring Neptune, because there's like our view is a bit skewed. It's like, why are we wearing glasses? Is it for a show? Is it for a play? A child and a dog? Like the borrowed eyeglasses is like, whose vision are we looking through? It's like
Right.
multifaceted crystal, or so I don't know. It's something about our sight, our view of things. And then, 8 hours after this new moon, Mercury is retrograde. So it's very slow. It's like stationary on this new moon. Mercury doesn't slow down very often and take a little pause, but when it turns around, it stays like right there for, some hours. And so this new moon is, the threshold of the Mercury retrograde too, that goes on for 3 weeks. So, and, this new moon sees us through the solstice. It's the time of the dark in the northern hemisphere, time of the light in the southern hemisphere. But there's something about the difference of how we are experiencing, but also working through the energies of those different solstice poles, that has a resonance in some way that is one of the mysteries of Earth, I think. So
Right.
definitely portals, the turning point of the sun, one way and the other. So yes, the square to Neptune in Pisces is very nuanced, subtle, like, are we seeing clearly or not seeing clearly? With that Sabian symbol too. Why are we putting on borrowed eyeglasses? A different way of looking at things, maybe looking at it through another person's lens, could be helpful, or it could be more confusing. So this
Well,
is
let's just explore this for a second, because we do like our Sabian symbols on this show and we like to have fun with them. And sometimes they're kind of far out and weird, but I'd have to say that this one's very far out and weird. I'm like, okay, a child and a dog. Well, why the dog? Why is the dog wearing sunglasses? And why are they wearing somebody else's? So I think everything you've said is totally on point. And I think that the fact that we do have a square to Neptune, which is often where things can get a little foggy, blurry, a little bit maybe with illusion or not clear. So I think what you're saying is on point, Kelley. Maybe we're being asked to take a step back and look at things from somebody else's perspective. Maybe we're just being force-fed a view of the world through the mainstream media's perspective. So we could say that the TV are a bit like borrowed eyeglasses, right? In some way, it's a window to the world, but it's not necessarily one that is true.
Well, what's going on with the media? Who is saying what?
Right.
And so there could be, yes, it's very interesting with the Mercury going retrograde. What
like
is going to happen to our information sources? And there's Sagittarius, the truth seeker and the truth speaker. So one way or another, Mercury's going back over and going to open some information, gonna, kind of bring out different perspectives, or who knows. It's going to be very interesting though. And it's really like the Sagittarian thing. Listen to your own intuition, what resonates or not resonates. So you can, if you know how to find that in yourself, you can trust that.
That's very interesting, Kelley, and without obviously getting ourselves into trouble on this channel, I know that we both scanned through varieties of different types of media to try and ascertain what the hell is going on. And for sure, one of the things that I've seen bubbling away in the background over the last couple of weeks is more mainstream news talking about the side effects of the offered medication from the last few years.
Well, that's a Neptune, isn't it?
That's what I'm thinking.
And medical, and yeah, that's definitely the Neptune arena. So
and I still don't know what is the current policy on YouTube, so we have to be careful. But I saw a clip yesterday from back home in Britain on BBC News where they were talking about a raft of litigation now going against some of the offered medication producers, the pharma companies who produce them, are now and they're saying that there's only 12 months because the original injuries happened 2 years ago, and in a claim like this you only have 3 years to make the claim. So this next 12 months is when anybody who suffered an offered medication side effect, if our audience knows what we're talking about, have the opportunity to make a claim. So I'm thinking that if this is being talked about on mainstream media, it's because the process is already well underway, and it's not the first place that I've seen this. So I'm wondering whether now we're going to get that alternative view with Mercury reviewing what the mainstream media has been talking about and more truth coming out now, and us being in a position to
certainly some things like that. And let's also look at the fire triangle we have here with the new moon, and Mars is there. So that's an action planet, and Sagittarian is one of the legal signs. It's about the truth. Whether we get the whole truth and nothing but the truth is a whole nother matter. But there's a trine to the North Node, for one thing. So this moon is pulling us forward. We are moving forward. And it sure feels like a relief with more fire energy after the deep energy we had with the Scorpio for the last while. We've got Venus still in Scorpio, and we're going to talk about that. But the North Node is pulling us forward into more clarity, and Chiron is there. Chiron is like, this could blow your mind. Have you heard this? Kind of energy.
Right, and it's a little, I'm looking at that and we're seeing that we've got the North Node and Chiron, which are at 8 degrees apart. So they're also in a very wide orb.
They're moving closer. They're moving closer.
I feel like I'm going to put you on the spot if I ask this question, but do you have any idea roughly when the Chiron and the North Node might come into an exact conjunction, Kelley? I'm thinking it must be in a few months from now.
It's before April, because on the April 8th eclipse, the North Node's at 15, and then Chiron is exactly to the minute conjunct that eclipse at 19 of Aries. So they've already met up by that time.
Isn't
I'm thinking sometime in March is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm not wishing to put you on the spot and spend time looking for this, but I'm just thinking that's very interesting. So there's going to come a point where the collective destiny is going to have to look at the collective wound, right? Which is going to be when Chiron conjuncts.
Okay, it's in February, actually. I can't give you an exact date, but it's in February.
Could be, and of course Chiron does retro back and forth, but I'm thinking that probably the North Node moves away too quickly for Chiron to then retro back onto another conjunction with the North Node. But
well, Chiron was at 19 when when Venus went retrograde.
Right, so it's
already been retrograde since. So yes, when it comes back to that eclipse and is at 19 again, it's then going to move on.
I think this is really important what we've just picked up on here, Kelley, because what we're looking at is I think the next phase of what is the transition process. We're moving beyond the realm of lies and deceit and ulterior deep state motives. I feel like that's kind of largely up and out and is being looked at. Certainly in the astral planes, I can say with some level of confidence from what I've seen that it's mostly been dealt with. However, we now have the knock-on side effects of everything that's happened over the last few years, which is basically collective healing that's needed psychologically, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So I'm thinking that we're heading towards a point in a few months' time where it's going to be very much in everyone's awareness that we need to heal collectively. It has to happen. Yes. No way past that. We have to go through that process. We have to purge collectively, and then we need to heal collectively.
Well, these can be also new healing technologies coming out.
Right.
And the April 8th eclipse is followed 2 weeks later by the exact Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So that's quite a month coming up. But we've got a lot to go through between now and then. And let's also...
I was going to say, sorry, I'm just saying that Uranus is also an aspect to Black Moon Lilith. And what is it when you get, because it's also in aspect to the Sun and Moon, but that's a weird angle, right? That one across.
Okay, slow down, Davyd. We haven't even mentioned Black Moon yet.
Sorry.
Part of the fire triangle.
Sorry, I was running off there because I was thinking Uranus and new technologies, and I was looking at Uranus's position and thinking, oh, that's also got some interesting aspects in this.
Yes.
But sorry, I'm racing ahead, Kelley. My bad.
I hadn't looked at that one, honestly. So because I was focusing on the full on the fire triangle, which is full of energy and such a positive, like lighting up, of in this moon cycle. So the Black Moon is back where it was in the summer when Venus was retrograde, because this is the true Black Moon that goes backwards and forwards a lot, and yes, we have focused on the flashpoint when they line up, but you were telling me earlier the mean Black Moon is at 11 or so.
It's at 11 for the solstice, so I guess it's probably about 9 or 10 right now, but yeah.
So that's in Virgo, and here it is, like at 17 of Leo. It's gone back that far, but it's picking up the energy from the summer and from that Venus retrograde, which I do want to talk about, because this Venus in Scorpio, I think is really very activated. So, but let's look at what you were noting, that Uranus is square that black moon. Basically, that's what also was happening in the summer to some extent. So, that's the beauty of astrology, is it shows the cycles, and the retrogrades are able to kind of weave different cycles together and make more of a beautiful symphony, and so Uranus is the awakener. Uranus is higher mind. Uranus is surprise. And black moon is something deep is emerging from what I am considering black moon now to be connected to the holy womb chakra, to the sacred womb chakra, that is not one of the seven. It's a different energy level that is holds the spark of the soul. And that aligns with some of my early impressions of the black moon, that it's not a body. The moon incarnates us onto the earth, and the black moon is so connected to the earth moon, but it's not physical. So there's this soul impulse there, is what I felt for a long time. And now that I'm learning more about the sacred womb chakra, the holy womb chakra, I'm seeing that that's what it is. And that's connected to the galactic center, which is the kind of galactic womb, we could say. So, and we've been lining up with that galactic center more significantly and powerfully since 2012 and the Mayan calendar turning point, which is one turning point in a much bigger process, that we're coming out of the Kali Yuga and turning back toward the light, and that, here we are at the bottom edge of the chaos and the stirring up. And wow, it's just an amazing time to be alive. So Uranus is waking up more of that energy that also can have a lot of healing potential, and it's going to change. It's changing things. It's, black moon in Leo goes back to the, its connection to the Venus retrograde, which opened up that heart of love in a very deep way. So
I'm just listening to what you're saying, and I'm realizing that we mixed up two different things there: the fire trine, but also the Uranus black moon Lilith. But somehow they're obviously linked, of course. And so, just to paraphrase the fire triangle, we've got black moon Lilith in aspect to both the sun and the moon on the new moon, but also Chiron on the north node. So I think this is a very potent fire trine you picked up here, which I feel is very important with the energy of black moon Lilith and the goddess and all of these aspects. And I think that also what I've seen from looking at the astrology from a number of perspectives for this solstice, that there's also a lot of forgiveness needing to come through for the feminine.
Yes,
particularly
well,
that wounded side.
Let's not forget Mars being in the fire triangle. But yeah, the forgiveness. This is the Neptune. This is the beautiful spiritual compassion that is activated on this new moon. And also, one of the Kuiper Belt objects that I've been writing about lately, I did a recent thing on my Substack about its connection to Thanksgiving. Tehran Waco is really within a degree of basically of this new moon, and it's an activation. A square is an activation, and so there's a whole part of the wonderful, rich story from the Iroquois people about Tehran Waco, the creator god, and how he, people would get off track. They would forget their spiritual origins. And Tehran Waco, early on, he would come back and he would say, look, you're getting off track. So you've been listening to my evil brother, who is very, very subtle and can manipulate your mind and get you off track. So here's some ceremonies. And if you keep observing these ceremonies, you will stay on the positive track. So
Right.
one of them had to do with giving, like Thanksgiving, so giving thanks to all the creatures, all the beings, everything. There's a very long version that I've heard of the Thanksgiving prayer that it takes a couple of days, and you thank every living creature, right up through the hierarchy of the stones to the gods and the thunder beings, and then the creator God. So I think that, to me, the US Thanksgiving is the first holy day of the season that is a lot about lighting candles, lighting fires, saying prayers in thanks and celebration. So this new moon carries us through that as well. I am a Sagittarius, and I really have a lot of candles going lately, and also my wood stove fires is my heating source. So this is a beautiful time for the fires and the Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
The Thanksgiving.
I totally agree, Kelley. I think this is a time for fires. In fact, I've been lighting fires every day this week too. It's partly because it's got a little chilly here in Mexico and I don't have a central heating system apart from the fires. But you know what? I'm also looking here and seeing that Uranus is a bit more of a player here on a number of angles that we hadn't perhaps considered. So it's also in a sextile, right, with Terran Waco, pretty close, only 8 degrees.
You're very close.
8
very
minutes
close.
out on that one. So that's a good aspect, but it's
also.
also.
Yeah, I like that. So that Uranus is waking up the earth energy in relation to that Thanksgiving.
Right.
The earth needs that.
Sort of flowing into the space. And I think that, whether we're, used to Thanksgiving or not, and obviously only certain cultures on the planet are used to that, we're moving into a period of the year where there's a sort of a natural ambience for Thanksgiving and for I think this is a time to be thankful and grateful for everything that's happened this year, so that when we come to the point of solstice in Yule, it's behind us and we're coming into a sort of a reset moment where we put our prayers to Great Spirit and we put them into the void, into the womb space, and then we wait for the return of the light, and then we celebrate. And I was doing an interview with my teacher, Patrick Manaway, for the immersion, and he pointed out just how many famous spiritual people are born on the 25th of December. It's not just Jesus. There's quite a few others too, which
I don't think Jesus was born on the 25th.
Of course not. That's not the point. It's not a literal thing.
Right,
it's about the birth of something new.
Moment. Yeah.
So when we think about the womb space and then the return of the light, it's the solar energy that gives the birthing momentum energetically. So it's the birth of a new spiritual tradition, Christ consciousness. There's quite a few other notables in there too. Okay. So anyway, that's
we've else. Got another slide for the new moon. So let me show you a few more of the things that
hold on.
Amplify.
I just want to also point out that Uranus is in a square to Black Moon Lilith, and I think in a quincunx to the new moon. So it's a very active player on this new moon chart, Kelley, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a quincunx. Yeah, Taurus and Sagittarius are so different.
Right. So that's so I think it's interesting. On the one hand, we've got the nice sextile from Uranus to Terran Waco, which is about the ease of new ideas, maybe new ways of being grateful, even new ways of receiving.
I wouldn't say ideas.
How would you see it then? How would you see that flow between Uranus and Terran Waco?
Just what I said, like the earth is awakening through our Thanksgiving. When we are feeling our connection to the earth is responding.
More of the Taurian energy, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. It's not an idea sign. It's a.
Well, I was thinking that Uranus sometimes brings new bolts of inspiration to the psyche.
Yes, but it's earth. It's through earth. It's through our embodiment. It's through earth energy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then the quincunx across to the sun and moon is sort of like the opposite of that flow, right? It's a sort of difficult to get things flowing. So how do you see the Uranus energy with the new moon itself?
So here's a way to think about quincunxes. So they're connected. It's 150 degrees apart. So earth and fire, two different elements, are both activated. We need earth to feed the fire. Their Taurus is fixed, deepening. Sagittarius is mutable, movable. So we have a lot of different, I don't know, we call them tools. We have elements and the modalities. We have a lot of them which is why it's challenging to use all of that energy in one activation. That there's a lot of energy that needs constant adjustment to keep all of those factors aligned.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, this is part of my own education with doing this show, is I'm trying to learn more about the angles at the moment and just trying to understand how they influence each other more. And of course, the longer we look at a chart, the more things we see. I'm just noticing that Neptune and Pluto are also in.
Okay, we have a whole nother slide to look at. But I just want to say one more thing about that quincunx. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
On a mundane level, you're traveling. Sagittarius is like on the move. It loves to travel. Taurus says, bring some food with you. That kind of thing.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next slide before I capture any more transits and aspects of my awareness.
I know there's so many things. So here's some of the other things that I caught. So we have, well, I don't want to say too much about this, but this does go through the whole moon cycle, that Mars and Ceres, the Earth Mother energy, are together, concerned about food, concerned about the international fabric of our world. And so let me jump over here to the Mercury going retrograde. It's like stationing here at 8+ degrees. And it's very close to Quawar, the Los Angeles area creator energy that sings and dances, energy into being. And Ixion, that's the king who killed his father-in-law, tried to seduce his wife, Jupiter's wife, when Jupiter was trying to help him out, and he got stuck on a wheel. He got in the underworld, and he had to continually, this is like the wheel of karma, and he had to continually repeat, like kids on the old-fashioned, kind of chalkboard. You had to keep writing the sentence. This is like, it's like a mantra. He had to keep repeating, show gratitude to your benefactor. And so this energy is really interesting in relation to the theme we were just mentioning of Thanksgiving, because gratitude is giving thanks. It's being grateful. It's appreciating. So there's something about how we're tuning our minds into gratitude, appreciation, and thankfulness during this Mercury retrograde. And that evokes new creative energy. It also is that celebratory, kind of dancing and singing at ceremonies, at parties. That not all cultures do that, but some, that's the way they celebrate. They dance and they sing. They give that joy unto the world. They're the raise your voice to the heavens kind of thing. So this conjunction, I think, is very interesting, because Mercury is going to circle that. And as we'll see on the full moon, the sun on the full moon is moving right into that conjunction. So I think this is a really important theme here, this little cluster that, I didn't want to deal with it, but it's like, gotta talk about this. This is part of our learning right now, part of what needs to be included in our Capricorn operating system, because Pluto is like shutting down the old system. So like there's an opportunity in this portal, in this moon cycle, to create some new systems and some new attitudes and some new.
It's a bit like the changing of the guard, right? As Pluto moves out and brings the curtain down on the old paradigm, let's say, the old top-down hierarchy, we've got these new energies coming in and sort of giving it a new, fresh lease of life, which I think is probably how many of us feel, myself included. It's like I'm kind of, the old world feels tired and done, and yet the new earth, let's say, is still somehow stuttering into life and there's a sort of a transition period that I think many of us have got a little bit frustrated by, is that we're still having to operate with many of the old paradigm structures and systems, even though we know that they're defunct or even
They don't
anchored.
work, and
They
they're not
don't
gonna work, you know?
Right?
It's
We
like
were just
there's not no business as usual. What are the new things
right.
that we need to develop in terms of infrastructure and systems? And we're getting a start on it here.
Right, and even just before we got on, me and Kelley were joking about our antique telephones. Right, we have iPhones that are in single digits, folks. That's how antiquated our technology is. But we were both just joking that somewhere in our intuition was not to buy a new smartphone, but to wait for the new quantum phone. So I'm very much in that space of believing that everything is ready to come online. I've seen that the quantum financial system is constructed. I've seen its blueprint in the astral plane, so I know that it's ready. I was told back in August that my own quantum financial account is ready and online. I just have to wait for a clear channel to be able to receive it. So we're kind of in this weird sort of holding pattern, Kelley, of many of us.
Mercury's going retrograde. It's even going to get more dysfunctional, possibly.
Don't tell me that.
In case it isn't obvious, they called my phone a vintage phone.
Wow, you should see. My dad's still running a phone that's the pre-smartphone. He literally cannot accept messages from me on his phone because he doesn't have an app. He doesn't even have apps on his phone. Imagine that, a phone that doesn't have apps.
Wow.
Just has buttons to dial a number. So some people are still in that space, but very, very interesting, Kelley. And I think that a lot of this new moon energy, and of course it is new moon, it's an intention setting time, but this is a time I think that we can really hone in on that new creative energy, not pull our ideas and visions from the past with whatever burdens or technologies they've still got attached to them, but say, hey, let me take the essence of what was in my dreams, reshape it with these incredible creative energies, and let me see, how does it look now? Am I creating my dream of the future based on how did the past look? Or am I just ripping up the rule book and saying, hey, let's try something different. Let's not bother getting a new smartphone. Let's get a quantum phone, for example, whatever.
Yeah. This is simple. Capricorn is be simple, basic, and see how far you can get back to that. And it's a very, solstice kind of energy. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is this Venus in Scorpio. And this Venus in Scorpio, we had a whole Scorpio month, we had an eclipse in there, we had Mars in there, and, this Sagittarius energy is so fiery and open, but Venus is still in Scorpio. So, and classically, she's not always very happy there, but it's like, if we're looking at the dark goddess, if we're looking at those goddesses of power, there they are. And Venus is part of a very interesting grand cross. Number one, it's opposite Jupiter in Taurus. So Jupiter and Venus were activated in a square during the Venus retrograde, and this is an opposition. There's a lot of touchback to the Venus retrograde. And here she is in a sign that's about going to the underworld and about internal emotional transformation and emotional alchemy. And Jupiter's going, if you do that, it's going to change your world for the better. As long as you're in an emotional space that is the love energy. And this goes back to the choice we've been facing for the last several months. Are we going in love, or are we buying into fear? And so this is continuing that emotional energy, because in so many ways we're very weary of what's been going on, and this is like keep and regenerating, keep emotionally on, keep transforming, keep letting go of what doesn't feel good, keep doing that, keep shedding those negative emotions. Don't let them get a hold of you, because your outcome is going to be much better in the earth sign, with Jupiter being very, very beneficial. So sometimes this can be a little overwhelming when Jupiter and Venus is like, whoa, so much emotional turmoil. It's like, just calm it down, just ground yourself. And then we have those two planets squaring number one, Characlo. Charclo in Aquarius, which is like holding the space for the best possibility. You know, Charclo has these rings, these two halos around her. And to me, she's tapping into the electrical circuitry, you know, the electromagnetic field, and she can pull in the most positive potential through that. If the static isn't distorted, she needs that kind of clarity. So this is like being around the right people, being around people you can celebrate with, you feel enjoy with, you feel in resonance with, no matter, you know, what other situations you've got going on socially. You need that. We need that kind of community, that kind of resonance also to help us. And then she's such a healer. She's so gentle and magical and powerful and just, again, I because it's Aquarius, I like this idea of this like receiver, you know, guy pulling in the good energy. And then we have over here, we have Varuna. Varuna is the Vedic god who oversees universal law and cosmic order, maintains cosmic order. So Varuna, to me, also, I've been noting people like yoga teachers or people who are into mantra practice or Sanskrit teachings or things like that, having a very strong Varuna. And I think that is really true for me because I've been having a Varuna transit, and I've recently gotten into a deeper level of mantra practice. So this is the cosmic law, cosmic order, and the also awareness that the Vedic teachings that are being revived from thousands of years ago, before the Kali Yuga, before the Dark Age. Some of these teachings are coming back. And so there's this resonance also with Ixion of doing mantras that are positive and bring the positive energy and vibe in. So
what to say about Ixion, but that's a quincunx, though, isn't it, from Varuna across to Ixion, I think.
Yes. So there we are dealing with, again, multiple elements, fire and earth again, interestingly. Again, the fire needs earth to feed it. And also that let's have some fun. It's not all about shoulds and have tos and work and duty. You know, let's have some playtime here. And let the love shine out. So that is going along nicely with the Quawar. Again, it's adjustment because we have to like sort of change our schedules to do all that, to add that in. But what's most important? What's going to work for you? What's going to turn your channel to a positive alignment? And it takes a lot of like, oh, I'm hearing a little static. I gotta fine tune. I've got to fine tune. And that also is part of the quincunx energy, this fine tuning. Oh, I've fallen back. Got to get back to it. You know, this is good for me. I know this is good for me. Let me tweak it, you know, so
I guess it's very much like being in the flow, right? The Tao sort of, you know, a little bit this way, a little bit that way, see what's coming.
You can't get complacent. There's no complacency here. This is an action moon. This is a Mars in a fire sign new moon. This is an action moon cycle.
Right. So before we move on to the full moon, just a couple of final thoughts there, I think, Kelley. So I'm also noting that we have that beautiful conjunction with Ceres and Mars, which is also conjunct the Great Attractor. So I think that's an interesting little aspect to that conjunction too. But also there's so much going on within this chart. But you've also highlighted just quickly there Eros and Psyche. Now Eros is conjuncting Saturn, and Psyche is conjuncting the new moon. So
do you
have anything you wish to add about those two?
Yes, and this is where we might go a little deeper when we, you know, are doing the thing for the return of the light, because there's Venus in Scorpio. You know, she's in the underworld, and I'm also plugging my new book, which may be out at some point.
Please go ahead.
So when I was doing my master's work, I mean, this was several decades ago, I was analyzing myths of the goddess going to the underworld. So that included Persephone, the Demeter series, that included Inanna and her underworld journey, and also Psyche goes into the underworld as one of her 4 major tasks that Venus imposes upon her for daring to love Eros, Venus's son, and for wanting to see who he really is. This is, Psyche and Eros. It's a beautiful myth, and it's so Eros is very misunderstood because people think erotic, sexuality, Eros is the god who emerged from chaos with Gaia. It's the desire to be, the desire to create, it's desire. And so it's very tantric in a spiritual way, especially in Pisces, because it's not just about sexuality, which can be a very spiritual experience. It's about making all of life spiritual. Everything that we do, it's about infusing spirituality in all of life. And so that's what Psyche wanted. That's what she fell in love with. And so this is our psycho-spiritual process of waking up that and embodying that energy more fully. Her 4 tasks had to do with earth, air, fire, and water. And so she had to go to the underworld. And
don't give too much of a spoiler alert here, Kelley. I'm just thinking, keep some of the juice back because we are going to be doing a little bit more.
Right. But I just, since we have this chart up, I had to explain that.
No, that's all cool. I'm just,
so she had to get a vial of Persephone's beauty cream. So that, the goddess of death, or whatever we want to say about that. So it's a very deep story. And of course, there's more to that story. So that Psyche is like that capacity to kind of tune into energy. It can be very psychic, but it's more like Psyche as being the psycho-spiritual reality of our experience and enhancing that, bringing that more to light, working with that intuitive capacity we have to recognize truth when we hear it. And then the new moon, especially, is in a quintile with Eros and Saturn. Quintile meaning a very positive genius aspect, that they're really working together. So Saturn and Eros, that's a whole nother thing. Again, that's this surrendering to spirit and the compassion and the creative capacity that Eros has to create from that emergence of whatever Saturn is bringing forth in the very sweetest way. I remember the video you did on the star nations, where she was talking about Pisces being and Saturn being so sweet and gentle in Pisces. And I loved that. That's what we're working with. That's what we need to focus through. And that's another Thanksgiving note, isn't it? Really?
It is. Well, okay, that's super interesting. I mean, I find Eros personally very interesting because I have Eros conjunct Ceres, conjunct my descendant. They're all within a matter of minutes of each other. So it's a very interesting kind of new take on that for me. My inner world does tend to be quite alchemical in many ways. So that kind of is intriguing. But okay, and just as Kelley is mentioning there, I'm just going to give a little plug to the alternative perspective that myself and Leslie Shankman, my teacher from Stellar Nations Pathway, did for the solstice. And we were looking at actually many of the same aspects, particularly Sarah's and Black Moon Lilith. We did a deep dive for the immersion, but we did a show that's out, and you can check that out, which is looking at the solstice energy through the cosmic history codes of the various stars and constellations. That's what Kelley's referring to, and you can see that here on the YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
But,
it was a little overwhelming to me, and I just want to, in case other people feel that way when you first are listening, but if you listen to it, you'll get these beautiful nuggets. It's like, that I really appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Kelley. I mean, it's like anything you're learning new. I mean, when I first started learning astrology, I found it a little overwhelming, and I still find it. I seem to be able to find incredibly obscure and bizarre rabbit holes in astrology to go down that no one else has thought of. They let me loose on the astro.com list of asteroids, and I haven't looked back since, as Kelley will no doubt testify to. But yeah, it's like anything. When you come across new material, it can be a little overwhelming, which is why me and Leslie were trying to find a way just to bring out some of the little nuggets that give us sort of an overview of the blueprint behind the blueprint. So anyway, so look, let's move on to the full moon, Kelley, because I'm clock watching today. We are very much trying to keep things on point, but as always, we get super into what we're talking about. But the full moon is coming up on the 26th of December in Cancer, and it's going to be the culmination of not just this new moon, but also this culmination point at the end of the year, because it comes literally sort of 24 hours after the return of the light. So we've got this beautiful balancing immediately of the energy of the sun, being counterbalanced by the energy of the moon. So we've got solar, lunar, yin, yang, masculine, feminine, all being harmonized at the end of this wave spell, which starts with the new moon, which is also about the goddess and also about the womb and about manifestation. So I'm like, wow, Spirit has really racked and stacked this next couple of weeks for us to do exactly everything that me and Kelley have just been talking about. So talk us through how you see it playing out on the full moon, Kelley, and let's see how we can decode it for the end of the show.
Moon in Cancer, moon rules Cancer. So, the moon in Cancer, this is definitely a goddess energy. And it is, Cancer has a way of tuning into what is needed. And so this full moon is doing that. Now, to me, a full moon, it reflects the light of the sun. So I always think in terms of the polarity, so it's easy to say, the full moon in Capricorn because the sun is in Capricorn and this is the full moon that's in the sun sign of Capricorn, but the moon is in the polarity sign of Cancer. So we're connecting that polarity. And here is that whole cluster where Mercury went retrograde and the sun is there. And so the moon is reflecting that whole cluster, and Ceres has moved into Cancer, Capricorn, and is on the solstice point. So, I know I haven't really explained a whole lot about what Psyche is about, but let's just think of her as the journey of your soul into enlightenment. And, there are asteroid interpreters who do a lot more with that. But for now, let's work with this because, then we've got the sun exactly with Ixion, and there's Quawar at the same degree that Mercury went retrograde, and Mercury's still retrograde. It's still retrograde. And so it still has to go back through that whole, conjunction again. So and Psyche is joining in that. So anyway, there's a lot to say about that is connected to Capricorn, which is earth energy. And we're going to call it new emerging earth energy because, Pluto's getting ready to go out of Capricorn. And so here's some of the emergence of the new earth, the new we don't even want to call them platforms. I want to call them the new natural forms and shapes that traditional peoples have observed to be able to live on earth in harmony for so long. And we're tuning into that energy, where our psyche's like tuning into that energy. And more of that is coming forward. And the more gratitude we're giving, the more grateful we are. The old karmic wheel won't pull us back. We'll be able to. Capricorn's a cardinal sign. It's a creative sign. It's on the leading edge of creativity. It's like a craftsperson, creating, like taking a lump of clay and making a bowl out of it on the wheel. That's Capricorn. Now, the full moon in Cancer is the nurturing and caring and tenderness and being able to receive what we need to receive. We don't always receive what we need from another person, but we can always receive from the goddess. She opens up her cornucopia of whatever you need, it's coming to you. So, there's that, just ask for the highest, everything in the highest alignment for you, and be open to receiving that. Because Capricorn gets very defensive and self-protective a lot because it's vulnerable. A crab without its shell is pretty vulnerable. So this is almost like an oyster. The oyster is protecting the pearl that's growing inside. And then when the pearl is ready, the oyster, can be opened.
Right. I mean, I'm just in my mind visualizing all of this energy that's coming up over these next few weeks. And it's just like the goddess is almost really, I feel like saying, hey, get your new moon intentions really clear, take them into the void space, into the womb with you, give them the fusion with the light from the sun, and then watch it instantly manifest and get ready to receive it. Quantum intelligence and magic doesn't actually have to be that complicated. Mostly we have to get ourselves out of the way of ourselves. Because otherwise we can't receive. We allow ourselves. This is the whole thing: divine will versus free will. Are we able to be freely able to receive our divine blueprint, or has our desire for free will taken us so far away from ourselves that we've forgotten what our divine blueprint is? So how do we combine divine will and free will? Well, I mean, if we are to step back into the place of being in the flow, that is to receive our divine blueprint, our divine will. But we can do that using free will. Because we have free will, we can choose to be adhering to a divine plan or not. And I feel that this whole process at the end of this year is reminding us of that fact. Both are important, have to have free will and divine will, but it's a bit like what I want and what I need, which is very 3D. But if I can combine what I need and what I want, then somehow I'm in a good place. If those two things become the same, I think that's really, really important. And
well, you're so used to being controlled by others or the rules, so no wonder we get
is an illusion, really. We allow ourselves to be controlled by others. That's another one of the illusions. But
because we're giving up our self-responsibility, which is a big Capricorn factor. So let's note that this full moon is squaring Salacia, the sparkling mermaid who brings in the light, who's like lights up, is bringing in these photon waves, and we're getting some pretty huge waves, aren't we?
We seem to be. Yeah, no doubt about that.
And then one more thing to note is the true black moon is back in Virgo. It was 17 on the new moon in Leo, and here it is back in Virgo. And we have a Lilith flashpoint on the 24th.
We have a Lilith flashpoint on the 24th, which is the day of the return of the light. So a huge portal day, everybody. Huge. Log it in your mind. 24th, big portal day. Make the most of it. That's incredible.
It's like sometime on that day, and it's at about 8 degrees of Virgo, about 8 or 9, maybe.
Wow, that has
9. It's at 9 Virgo. Yeah.
Okay, so
opposite arrows. So it's like, whoa.
Well, interestingly, looking at this, Black Moon Lilith is aspecting a few things, right? It's in aspect to Pluto also. What is that?
Not really. No, Pluto's at 29.
Oh, sorry, I'm misreading that. I was thinking it's at 12, but it's in aspect to what was it? I was just looking at
Uranus.
To Uranus, exactly. And Uranus
is
also
you said Uranus was square the true black moon on the new moon, and in trine with this
Mhm.
full moon. So that's special. That's a big difference. And
Right.
that is the ego challenge. Black moon in Leo is like, don't you dare come from ego.
Uh-huh.
Come from the heart of love. That's the way to go.
And I'm also looking to see that Uranus is an aspect to a little wide, but to Venus and Mercury
Oh,
in Sagittarius. Is that what are we looking at there? Is that another quincunx or is that a trine? I think it's a quincunx, right?
quincunx. The same quincunx. We talked about this quincunx because the new moon was quincunx Uranus.
Right. So it's
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's interesting. So Uranus is actually quite a big player, but not obvious over both of these new moons and full moons. It's having an exerting influence in various ways, right?
Yes. And Mercury's going forward on January 1st or 2nd. So
Mercury, okay.
yeah, so
Um,
it's really very close to its station point, which is really at 22. So that's part of what we got going on here too. And yep, Pluto's getting to the edge there. Pluto's getting to the edge.
and Pluto's is in a sextile with Uranus, right? Sorry, with Neptune. Um,
Yes. Yeah, they would have a long-term, sextile.
which is positive, right? Because I mean, Neptune and Pluto are not always the easiest energies to work with, but I'm guessing
Well,
those two harmonize is
they're
probably
working together. So if they're
yeah.
working on a negative path, you don't want to go there. That is like negative delusion. But on a positive side, it's the empowerment of our spirituality and compassion that will bring, some new ways and means forward to make our world, a peaceful place.
Could we also say that Pluto, by being in that sextile with Neptune in Pisces, is also more likely to bring disclosure about medications and things that don't serve us? I mean, would that be part of Neptune in Pisces?
I don't know.
I
I think
mean,
we need a Mercury in there.
yeah.
Mercury's
Um,
squaring Neptune pretty closely. Look at that. It's a really 25 degrees square. So that could be what you're thinking about here. That could be your intuitive alignment.
well, I was thinking more about Pluto in its final reconnoiter of the top-down hierarchy.
Well,
It's looking at all of
it's
the things that,
definitely taking down the hierarchy. Yeah,
right. So we've
yeah.
got the taking down of the hierarchy, and then we've got the disclosure of what the hierarchy have been up to, all through the foggy Neptune in
Ooh.
Pisces piece, which is trying to perhaps make something clear that has not been clear to most of the
Yeah,
population.
and some people are not going to be happy about all this. Mars is squaring Neptune as well.
Wow. I think this
So,
Mercury retro is going to be very, very important. And now that we're sort of seeing some of that appear in the charts, maybe that wasn't obvious at the beginning, it's making me think very much about that conjunction with the North Node and Chiron in February. It's like, is that what we're moving towards now? Is that recognition of what the hierarchy has been up to over the last period? And now is it being taken down? And are we going to see how it's being taken down or what it's been up to? I think that many of us have been waiting for that for a long time, but who knows?
and there are
But
other kinds of disclosures, like of our history. And that would be part of the Pluto in Capricorn too, the controlled history narrative. And that's really opening up.
well, I think that if I've learned anything, I mean, I've shared this a couple of times, but over the last 3 years, is that if we were to believe the historical narratives that we have received from the history books, we would believe that that's how things really were. But if we were to do that from the last 3 years, and let's just say that the
Right.
opposing forces in this story, they got to write the history books, we would be left believing a whole bunch of stuff that we know is not actually true because we were here to witness it. However, perhaps because of the collective duping and hoaxing, that's how the history books have managed to rewrite things that happened, like the Spanish flu or other pandemics that happened in the past. But we actually have no idea if any of what we've been given is true. We really don't. All we have is some scraps of parchment from somewhere or one person's account of a process. And if we were to do the same thing from the last 3 years, we would have a completely distorted, incorrect, probably incoherent view of whatever actually happened. So I think that we
And
have to
that's
look at
that's the Neptune flavor.
that's
The
the Neptune, right?
distortion, the disinformation, the illusion, the veil,
But
the
it made me,
obfuscation.
my point is, it's made me wonder, looking back and being so fascinated by history and archaeology and everything. It's just like, well, actually, how much of any of what I've been given can I believe? And whereas I used to watch lots of history documentaries and dramas, I actually can't bring myself to watch most of them anymore, because I'm like, well, whose agenda is running through this one, and whose perspective is this?
Let's enough of that. I just noticed something else I want to bring in. So we have the moon is trine Pisces and Saturn in Pisces, lovely kindness, gentleness, but also trine Haumea. That's a beautiful water trine. Yeah.
So maybe this is
still got some fire. We still got all the fire, but this is the gentleness. This is the sweetness and loving kindness of that, of all of those. Well, Scorpio, that's a different thing. It's like, intense love, but these other two are very sweet and gentle, and that's what Haumea is bringing forth. That she's seeding, she's bringing forth some new energy. And early on, before the new moon, Venus and Haumea were conjunct when Venus first went into Scorpio. So Venus, I think, all through her passage to Scorpio, has been feeling that gestation energy from Haumea, and the within the goddess, within the womb energy that you mentioned. So anyway, maybe we ought to wrap it up, David. I mean,
no, I'm just processing all of that. No, that's very interesting.
I
think that, despite my little personal rant there, I think that the energy that you've just alluded to with Saturn, the moon, and Haumea is perhaps the offset of how do we stay soft and gentle, compassionate, non-judgmental when things start to get revealed and people maybe get a little out of shape, and maybe we get more of that Mars and Eris kind of energy that people want to get out and protest and da. But I feel that we're always being called, for those of us that are aware, to take the non-dual perspective, the eagle's perch, and just observe when we get triggered, observe when the collective gets triggered, and just remember that it's all part of a story and a narrative that we all signed up for. We did, and everything that is going on is part of that design. And we have to be the observer in this. We have to be quantum about it and say, hey, I'm not going to get pulled in with my emotional turmoil into a space of fire and confusion, because that's not going to be good for me or anybody else. So I feel that this full moon is showing us the potentiality of how we can use fire if we have our emotions, our water under control, because there are going to be things that are going to unfold over the next few months that those of us who are maybe on a more new earth timeline, more eagle's perch, more non-dual, can say, hey, that's great. But maybe some people who are not in that position, they're going to get very much in the tumble dryer of their emotions and maybe get pulled into some of these trigger points. So I think that it's again just a sort of a juxtaposition of perhaps two places that the various aspects of the collective could find themselves in, and how one aspect of the collective could help hold the others. Well,
I like what you said about, if we're in our quantum consciousness, which, is what I think the quantum Kuiper Belt objects are to help us with.
Right.
And that's why I like bringing them into these discussions, to help people see, what they're inviting us into, and, kind of pathways to get there, so to speak.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah, and I can see that somehow Mercury is also going to be conjunct, I think, the galactic center. So it's really cool.
And so is Varda, and so is Psyche through this moon cycle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think what we're looking at here is a lot of new inputs coming into our
Yes, that's it. And literal, because it's Capricorn. We're going to be seeing it. We're going to be seeing it. No matter what else is going on. So anyway,
this is, I think, the final piece of this. Perhaps we can take the chart down, Kelley, and we'll wrap up for today. I feel that there's so many powerful motifs at work here. I think we've kind of really sort of hammered home the importance of the intention setting on the new moon and the womb space, and then the full moon culmination. But it's also, this full moon is showing us about what's going to come next, I think, over the next few months, and how we can set ourselves, maybe ground ourselves, sit under our favorite tree, meditate, and be in our eagle's perch perspective, and be an observer to what is going on, and not necessarily have to be a participant in stuff that doesn't.
Well, and being held in the energy.
Yeah.
And, just resting back into it and feeling the support, of the Divine Mother, and, kind of leaning back into, the energy of the divine, and knowing that it's there.
Yeah, and just allowing the energy of the goddess to come through from her
Yeah.
more galactic orbit through the galactic center. This is a time, I think, where those of us who've been doing the inner work and are ready to receive might start to receive more galactic impulses. It's partly why me and Leslie did the little show that we did. It's like, are we able to connect to our more cosmic self? Are we receiving the information from galactic center? And if so, how do we take the information from the heavens and bring it down here to Earth, which I think really is what this solstice is all about. So,
And isn't that what you're inviting people into with the return
it
of the
is.
light?
It is,
And
exactly. Thank you, Kelley. And so
yeah.
actually for all of our Moons and Mythos followers out there, we're offering a special 20% discount off the asking price for the Return of the Light journey, which will start on the 12th and run through until the 24th, 13 days, to really harness. The whole point of this journey is to harness everything that me and Kelley have been talking about. Kelley's going to be joining us, and indeed a number of other teachers. You can see all the information on our website, but if you check the show notes, there's a link and also the special discount code M2M20. Pop that in at the checkout and you'll get 20% off. So hopefully many of you will join us for that, because we're trying to hold the container, Kelley, to really hold all the things that we've just talked about, to have a collective
and wrapping up the whole
alive.
year. Wrapping up the whole year, you know, I'm so excited personally about the mullein, because I had a volunteer mullein up here in my garden this year, and I was paying more attention to the thistle than the mullein, and so I want to get back to the mullein because it's going to be in next year's garden as well.
Yeah, and just to talk about what Kelley's alluding to there, the totemic plant for this immersion is going to be mullein. Mullein is very much representative of the sword of light, of Archangel Michael's flaming sword of light, very solar in its connection, very crown chakra, very soul star. So these are the energies we want, and because of its very we can say rod-like stem that it forms in its second year with the flowers, it's really reminding us of our central channel, of our Shushumna, our central channel of light, which needs to be kept clear so that we can have the potential for the potent point in the solstice. We're also going to be working with mistletoe and ivy, which are both very Christmas plants, and myself and the brother Mr. Jackson Main, we did a recording on these plants this week, and it was mind-blowingly interesting, because guess what the major themes are? It's about fertility and about being with that energy, but it's also about making sure that we are removing the parasites from our energy field. So as always, there's always a dual aspect there. Get clean and clear, get ready to receive, and be in your central channel of clarity. So that's it for us, everybody, for this episode of Moons and Mythos. A big, huge celebratory birthday hug for the wonderful Miss Kelley Hunter. Have a great day tomorrow, Kelley, and looking forward to having you join us for the immersion. Have a great festive period, everybody, no matter what you're doing. And hopefully some of you may join me and Kelley and others to hold space for the return of the light. We look forward to seeing you all regardless next month for episode number 18 of Moons and Mythos. So take it easy. Until then, ciao for now, everybody.